For nearly 4 decades now, the Gallagher Amendment has had the final say when it comes to who pays what for property taxes. The goal was to provide some relief for homeowners by sharing the burden with businesses. But nearly 40 years later, some say that this amendment has outlived its usefulness and is now hurting businesses. So on the November ballot is a question of whether to repeal the Gallagher Amendment. Here's a 360 look at that issue.
Everything's all done by hand.
If the story of small businesses is the bond that holds a community together,
I feel when you do it handmade, there's a certain sense of pride.
Denver bookbinding is the glue.
We're the only company that does what we do under one roof in a 9-state area.
For 91 years,
we're doing more leather work.
This family business has been a staple.
We do a lot of book restorations, a lot of Bible restorations.
We get things that are worth nothing on paper, but worth a lot in a family.
This year, business hasn't been as good. Along with COVID-19, things are going digital these days.
We're waiting for the die plate to come in.
And co-owner Gail Lindley says property taxes aren't helping.
Taxes went up $12,000. Just between last year and this year.
The increase is thanks to a 4-decade-old law known as the Gallagher Amendment. On November 3rd, voters will be asked to make the biggest change to Colorado's property tax structure in decades by repealing it. On the ballot for this Denver 7 360, a business group, a former state lawmaker, Denver bookbinding, and a homeowner. As a reminder, the Gallagher Amendment made it so that homeowners will never pay more in property taxes than commercial owners. They make up 45% of the burden statewide, while businesses make up the other 55%. To keep that balance, the assessment rates on homes have dropped from 21% in 1982 to 7.15% today, meaning a $400,000 house can only be taxed on $28,600 of its value. This year, that assessment rate is set to drop yet again to about 5.88%, since businesses aren't making as much in the recession. So for that same $400,000 house, only $23,500 would be taxable.
We have some of the lowest residential property taxes in the nation.
While the amendment has saved homeowners an estimated $35 billion over the years,
While at the same time, business has remained at 29%.
Tony Gagliardi from the National Federation of Independent Businesses says it comes at a cost.
It's the devil in disguise to business. Businesses today pay 300 times more than residential. Business is paying far more than their share.
Some are closing down completely, like Racine's, which cited its $73,000 property taxes as a factor.
And Gallagher has outlived its usefulness. So we're asking the citizens of Colorado a favorable vote to repeal it.
Gagliardi insists that while a repeal will ease the burden on businesses,
it's not a tax increase. I want that message out there loud and clear.
Baloney. The whole goal is to raise home taxes eventually. It will freeze the residential property tax rate at 7.12% instead of allowing it to go to a lower rate, which to me is the same as a tax increase.
If there's one person who knows about the complexities of the Gallagher Amendment,
I'm Dennis Gallagher, and I was 2 terms in the Colorado House and 4 terms in the Colorado Senate.
It's the law's namesake.
I know Gallagher has some problems.
But Dennis Gallagher doesn't believe an outright repeal is the way to fix it, particularly during a pandemic.
Timing is everything in politics. This is not the time to be putting doubts in people's minds as far as their property taxes are concerned.
So even in retirement,
and this is the first sign that's been made in the campaign, and it's in my calligraphy.
He's fighting to protect his legacy.
I hope people will vote no on Amendment B.
After more than half a century in the same spot,
when the city and county of Denver presented us a tax bill of $50,000, we couldn't do it.
Denver bookbinding was forced to relocate 7 years ago. This building on West 47th Avenue has been their new home ever since.
This is a 50 states travel journal that we're doing for a company.
But problems have a habit of finding their way back to you.
7 years ago, taxes started off at $13,000 a year, and currently The tax bill is $54,000.
So once again,
We're looking to move. We can't sustain the taxes in Denver, and it has been so stressful. I just think it's a shame that something that's got a Denver name on it can't stay in Denver because the costs are so outrageous.
they're hoping voters will choose to repeal Gallagher for the sake of small businesses.
We're not Amazon, we're not Walmart, we're Denver bookbinding, and we want to stay.
So here's your assessed value. That's how they get to that value.
For homeowners like Kathleen Chandler,
And then this is how they get to your tax rate.
the Gallagher Amendment has provided an important lifeline in an increasingly expensive state.
So at the end, I pay the $126,955 mil.
She works for the Independence Institute and says Gallagher has kept people from being priced out of their homes. But it does affect areas differently. In places like Denver, where there are lots of businesses, the burden is spread out. But
If you have maybe 3 businesses in a very small community, those 3 businesses are having to pick up 55% of the taxes that are in that community. A lot of the smaller communities are very upset about what's going on up here in the Front Range.
so she agrees something needs to be done. She just doesn't think this is the right solution.
I think a regional approach is a much better avenue than just this one-size-fits-all.
And she's worried about who's going to get hurt by repealing it.
Seniors really are going to be the ones that are going to be most hardest hit.
For nearly 40 years, the Gallagher Amendment has helped Colorado residents. Those same residents will now vote on its fate. A fate that could affect businesses, schools, fire districts, and more around the state for years. Now, the Gallagher Amendment is complicated because it affects so many different people. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have part 2 of that 360 featuring even more voices. For more on Amendment B or for any of the other statewide initiatives that you're going to be voting on in November, go to our website, thedenverchannel.com, and click on the Election tab. I'm Megan Lopez.